Here's some more numbers. That's a picture of the intake manifold. 184-36572, the firing order of the spark plugs. Here's kind of a drawing of how a spark plug is made. What got my interest in this was the GMC parts interchange. There's a section in there on spark plugs and recommended spark plugs. And then the last GMCI newsletter, there was an article written by Dick Patterson about spark plugs, heat ranges, and torque. I'm dumb. Everything that I've learned, I know more about the GMC Motorhome than I ever wanted to. And I've been messing with cars and motorhomes for a long time. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I always thought heat range had to do with the spark. But the spark is related to the coil, and the coils are going to be 40 or 45,000 volts unless you've got some special racing coil. And I thought they just made a finer wire so that you had to put more voltage across a smaller place. But the heat range has to do with the design of the spark plug, the materials that it's made out of, and how hot it is when it's working. It doesn't have anything to do with voltage. Most of y'all probably already knew that. No? And we'll talk about that again a little bit more in a minute. And Paul was harassing me earlier today because I told him I had never torqued a spark plug in my life. I always tighten them up and bump them a little bit more. Dick Patterson's article said that any spark plug will fire a 403 or a 455, whether to do it efficiently or not, or whether to foul out or cause detonation, depending on whether you got the right spark plug. But you need to torque them properly. Back to the heat range, the insulation on the spark plug these days is made out of aluminum silicate, which is some sort of sand, I guess, ceramic. They glaze the top part of it and put the name and the part number in the upper portion. They have these ribs. The ribs just give them more square inches or more area for heat to dissipate from this. If they didn't have the ribs, it would be taller or longer. You have two seals, one at the top of the body and one at the bottom of the body. And one of the purposes of a spark plug is you've got to seal that hole that's drilled at the top of the head, otherwise it's going to go out. You have the shell, the insulator, and they don't glaze the lower portion. And I've got some spark plugs to pass around here a little bit. And unfortunately, they said the best way you could tell heat ranges was if you had two of the same brand of spark plugs with different heat ranges. Then you could look at the tip and where the insulator is down there. The way they work, you've got to transfer heat through the tip and through the threads into the head. And if you have more insulation down here, you force all of that to go through the threads and it'll go out quicker into it, and so your plug will be cooler down here. Medium, you've got a more tortuous path for the heat to go out. Or if you have a hot one, you've got more air here, the heat's got to go up around like that and keep the tip hotter. Every place that I read was somewhere that the temperature of the tip of the plug should be somewhere between 450 and 800 degrees centigrade. Some of them say 475, some say 500, but somewhere, say 500 to 800 degrees. The spark plug, one of the main things, the spark plug doesn't cause a lot of the detrimental effects to a spark plug, but it has to live with it. And heat the faster you go, the more RPMs, the sooner it fires, the less time you have for it to recover between those. At 2,000 RPMs, I think a spark plug fires about every 16th of a second. So it's going off pretty quickly. And so the faster you go, the hotter it's going to get. And if you've got a real hot plug, you're going to get where the end of it's going to glow, and you'll have pre-ignition. If it gets too hot in there, you'll have detonation, where you have the spark plug causing the air-fuel mixture to go off. You may have a hot spot around the edge of the piston. Those two things come together, and that's what causes your ping, is when instead of a clean burn, you have more of an explosion in there. Heat range is critical, this says. I'm not sure you want to read that very good, but it says it's got to stay cool enough to avoid pre-ignition or electrode destruction. It's got to run hot enough to burn off the combustion deposit so that it doesn't plug up. And it has to adapt from idle speed to whatever your RPM is at top speed. There's some guides that they give to remove spark plugs or change them. The first thing they say you should do, of course, you've got to take the spark plug wires off and recommend twisting it a quarter or a half of a turn to break it loose because it's sticky, because of the heat. And you also have a vacuum when you got that loop on the end of it. Then you need to take the wrench and break it loose just a little bit. Then they say to take either a little blowgun air or a straw. Now on the GMC, I'm not sure how you're ever going to get in there with a straw. If you got a 4-cylinder Honda with the end spark plugs on the top, you may blow in it, but you don't want any trash falling in there on the threads when you start replacing your spark plug. Then you take your plugs out. Now, personally, I take them out one at a time, replace it, and then I work my way down to the next one. And that way I don't end up with any plug wires crossed. These days, they don't recommend cleaning spark plugs. It used to be that every service station in the back of the bay, there was a 30-gallon drum that they threw the old spark plugs in. And there was a spark plug cleaning machine, a little sandblaster that normally it had either AC or Champion on it. But they say the cost of plugs these days versus the cost of labor, it's faster just to change them than it is to clean them. If you do clean them, you need to blow out the plug and get rid of all the little sandblasting material that could be caught up in there, because that will insulate and keep you from having the good heat transfer that you need to keep the tip of the plug from blowing. The new plugs, and I've got here, this isn't very professional. We hit me about 10 o'clock last night how to get these plugs where we can go around the room and y'all can look at them. But I have part of Dick Patterson's article was he used to recommend the AC Delco Rapid Fire 7 spark plug. And he said that the tip on the original ones was kind of centered like the grooves on an axle. And then in 2010 or somewhere in there, they changed it to a normal tip and got away from that. I've got one of Patterson's engines, and to the best of my knowledge, this 7 plug here is the old design because it was in the engine when I bought it from him in 2010. So hopefully he had what he was recommended in there at that time. Then I've got a couple of Autolite. They're the same heat range, 847. One is a platinum, one is just a regular 847. And then up here, most of y'all have seen, we've got a 403 head that came from Richard Hodges. He left the spark plugs in it. So there's an AC 44 XLS with some extended range plug. You don't want an extended range plug in the 455 because it'll go down too far into the head You could have the piston come up and hit it. You could damage the threads from the detonation.
Jim, Richard did say to tell you that those are not the spark plugs that were in that head. He just turned them on up.
Is that right?
So they may or may not have been.
Yeah, okay. Well, they look like they fit because they don't extend down, but if your threads extend down too far, you're going to damage the threads from the explosions of the air fuel mixture going off. Then when you go to unscrew it, you're going to mess up the threads at the end. Well, anyhow, I can pass those around and look at it. There's also a wire-type gapping tool. And they say to use that instead of the flat feeler gauge, because the flat feeler gauge with the tip design these days, especially with the precious metal, the platinum, iridium or something, you could damage the tip, and you don't want to do that. You just want to bend the electrode if you're adjusting the plugs. All plugs come with some kind of factory gap, which should be the same in the box, but plugs fit different engines. And most of the spark plug manufacturers recommend that the gap that you use is whatever the manufacturer recommends. So, if your manual says to gap it at 35 thousandths or 40 thousandths, we've gotten away. I think they went to 80 and 60 thousandths when they went to the HEI ignition, but found out that was putting too much strain on the coil and the module. So they closed the gap up. Dick Patterson also had done some work with on the dynamometer, changing the gap, checking torque, and he didn't find any relationship between a smaller gap and losing torque. So I think he's recommending 38 to 40 thousandths gap on the plugs, and he recommends a NGK iridium plug. Next here, so short NGK video. All right, I thought this would be a good time. Speaking of spark plug, I have always put a little anti-seize material on it. You kind of spread it around a little bit and put some silicone spark plug lubricant so that I can get the boot off and it doesn't get seized up in the head. I have not found any spark plug manufacturer, when I was looking up stuff, that recommend that you put anything on threads. They say the thread should be clean. NGK says specifically that they have a lubricant on their plugs when they come out of the box. But reading is if you put something on there and when you torque it, you'll torque it too tight. If you have that, and you need good contact between the threads on the spark plug and the threads in the head, so that you can get the proper heat transfer. thought it'd be interesting if somebody, Billy, you want to tighten one up? Just the way you would normally do it. Patterson, each spark plug manufacturer recommends a different torque setting except for AC Delco. And AC Delco recommended that you use the manufacturer's torque setting.
All right, what about
All right. Now that's set on 23. Just see how if you got it tight or not. Yeah, you did well.
That's about right.
All right. And I'll leave the torque wrench in this other one up here, and in a little while when we get through it, y'all can come around and see how you do. I don't. Does everybody in here torque your spark plug? I've never torqued one in my life. Good guy. When I was looking at this, a little bit off the subject, but Champion spark plugs, everybody is familiar with those. The story of Albert Champion, who started the spark plug company, is kind of interesting. Spark plugs were first invented in, I think, the 1850s by a gentleman in France. Then when automobiles came around, I think Mercedes or so in the late 1890s, Bosch, that makes Bosch spark plugs, Robert Bosch, one of the engineers that worked for him, invented the automotive spark plug. Albert Champion was a Frenchman that rode bicycles and raced bicycles in France, and mostly on velodromes, those board racetracks. But they had some races there that they called pacer races, where they had somebody on a motorcycle and the bicycles would follow. And he won a big race and won some money, and it surprised everybody that he won it because he was not noted as a pacer type racer. He did the board tracks. So he decided to come to the United States, and he moved to Boston to race, and he wanted to race motorcycles, and he had difficulty finding parts. So he started the Champion Spark Plug Company, started making spark plugs and selling to his friends. And he got some investors to go in with him. And he was doing pretty good until he had a wreck. He was in the hospital for a while, and somewhere he got crossed up with the investors, and they took the company away from him. All of a sudden, he was out of the hospital, didn't have a company, and didn't have a job. So he went back to France and raced bicycles over there, decided to try the United States again. So the first time he went to Boston to start his Champion Spark Plug, he went to Flint, Michigan, and he got hooked up with the people that ran the Buick Motor Company. Buick invested with him and set him up with an office and stuff, and so he started Champion Ignition Company. Well, the people in Boston says, you know, there can't be Champion Spark Plug and Champion Ignition. You're infringing on our name. And so he had to change his name. He changed it to his initials, so that's where AC came from. It's Albert Champion. And he, in 1925, 6, 7, whatever it was, when Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic solo, he had AC spark plugs in his engine. So in France, they were having a big shindig to honor Champion as a Frenchman who had built spark plugs for this American to fly across the ocean. And at the dance, he was escorting his wife up to the dance floor and had a heart attack and died. So that was the end of Albert Champion. Buick ended up buying the stock from his estate. And so that's how AC became part of General Motors. And it was known that it was still AC until I think 1971 when General Motors combined a bunch of different companies that they held and took them under the Delco name. And that's in 71 when it became AC Delco. All right. When installing the spark plugs, they say you ought to put it in finger tight and then use a torque wrench to tighten it to the proper torque. I've got here a few charts from different spark plug companies. The green one Here is the E3 spark plugs that have the 3 different electrodes. They say our spark plugs are a 14 millimeter. With the cast iron head, they say it ought to go to 25 to 30 foot-pounds. Or if you don't have a torque wrench, after you put it up hand tight, it ought to go from a half to 3/4 of a turn tighter. Auto light with a 14 millimeter gasket, they say go 26 to 29 foot-pounds. Here's one that says the 14 millimeter ought to be 26 to 29 foot-pounds. For the 14 to 18 millimeter gasket seal plug, 1/2 turn past finger tight. So those of us that have not been torquing them, we're probably pretty close if we go about a 1/2 turn past. Here's the NGK. They say go 18 to 25.3 foot-pounds, which I'm saying, since it's a 0.3, is probably a metric conversion from Newton meters to foot-pounds. And this is NGK, and that's Patterson says 23 foot-pounds. He's not quite in the middle, but I think that's probably where he got his number. Here's another one, the M14. They say go 20 to 30 Newton meters, which I think I converted to like 15 to 23 foot-pounds. Or they say go a 1/2 turn with a new spark plug, or only a 1/12 of a turn if you've got one where the gasket has already been pressed. I read somewhere where the gaskets are good for at least 4 removals and replacements. Speaking of gaskets, some racers do what they call indexing spark plugs, where they get where the gap is pointing toward the intake valve, but they said that it's not really worth the trouble for street engines. That on a 500 horsepower engine, you can maybe get 5 horsepower by indexing the plug. But you can go like with Summit and buy some spark plug gaskets that are different thicknesses. And you can put a mark on your magic marker on your spark plug, and you can play with it till you get the gap towards the intake valve. This is the AC Delco. They say installing the spark plug, use a torque wrench to tighten to the proper torque rating recommended by the engine manufacturer. And that's about all I've got, guys. Anybody got any questions that somebody could, if I can't answer, somebody else maybe in the room can?
If anybody ever had put a new set of plugs in, run your engine a little bit, all the ones that won't run it's something real rough.
Brand new plug?
Of course, mostly I'm talking about your 350 Chevrolets or any other engine that's burning lots of oil, you're having an oil consumption problem. It is very possible, well, I've had it happen lots of times years ago at 350 when I was in the car business, buying old cars and all this and that, but I also had it happen in the last few days. I've got an engine, I've had a lot of oil consumption problems over it, and I'm on my 3rd set of plugs because it will kill them spark plugs.
Have you tried different heat ratings, or are you just using the same plug?
I'm using the recommended plugs for that engine. But you can take them out, of course, I take them out and it'd be soldered up, but the engine wouldn't hardly crack, couldn't hardly miss as bad, but a new set of plugs in it, run real good again until it killed it again.
Speaking of spark plugs, my neighbor told me a story. He's an architect, and he said he was designing a house for a gentleman that had a used car lot. And when he went in, he drew the house plans. He went to the guy and met in his office, and he had a cigar box sitting over on the side of his desk. And he had to go home and change the plans a little bit, took them back again, and the cigar box was there. It was on a different place on the desk, but it was still there. So he had to do some more final work on the drawings for the house, and one evening he had to go to the gentleman's home, and when he got there, the cigar box was at the house again, and he said, he asked me, he said, I know you good enough that I think that I can ask you a question, and if it's personal, you don't want to answer it, it won't hurt my feelings if I don't. But he says, everywhere I go, you've got that cigar box. Do you mind if I ask what's in it? He said, $8,000. He said, I'll show you, but let me tell you something first. He said, you know, when you go to the dealership and they've got that barrel over in the corner that throw the old spark plugs in, he said, that's my barrel. He said, I recycle spark plugs. I've got a couple of Hispanic gentlemen that work with me at the used car lot. They go to the auction, drive cars back, they tune them up, they wash them. If it's raining or we don't have anything to do, he says, I send them around to the dealerships with an empty barrel, and they bring the barrels back, and I have them separate the plugs. And he said, I get all the platinum plugs and I cut the tips off. And he opened up the cigar box, and it was full of platinum tips off spark plugs. And he said that that was his $8,000. He figured when he opened it up, he's going to be stacked $100 bills or something with his platinum tips. And I looked last week on CNBC where they had the price of gold and all that. Gold was $1,200 and something an ounce. Platinum was $1,108. So it's about $100 an ounce. So that's, it takes a lot of tips to make an ounce. Anybody else got any other questions or comments? Yeah.
You know, is there a listing of heat ranges on different plugs where you can find the heat range on what a plug is?
Yeah. On, you know, like on the GMC is what, R45?
Right.
And interesting, I've got a 71 Cutlass, and the maintenance manual on it also includes the 71 Tornado. And the Tornado, they recommended an R46, which was heat ranges for almost all spark plug manufacturers. The higher number it goes, the hotter it is. But Denso goes the other way. So there are some spark plug manufacturers that the lower, you know, there's no universal. Most of them, the hotter it is, the higher the number is. And if you can look on the computer and put in spark plug charts or something, and they'll have like AC Delco will have a plug that will relate to another manufacturer, and they'll have some.
Okay. Is there a scale on that, or is it just hot, medium, cold?
I think it's probably hot, cool, colder. You know, I don't think there's something that says it's going to be 800 degrees or it's going to be 500 degrees.
Like a scale of 1 to 10 or something like that?
Yeah, because you know, there's lots of the air-fuel ratio affects the temperature inside the combustion chamber. Whether you have the ignition advanced or retarded has something to do with it. And then everyday weather, atmospheric pressure and humidity. There's a lot of things. Dick Patterson's article, he stresses that you ought to go on the cool side. They say for like every 10 degrees of ignition advance, you raise the temperature 70 to 100 degrees. And I think one step down on a cooler spark plug is about a 70 to 100 degrees. Seems like I read that.